Hello everyone, this is Vedat from Programmership. Today we are gonna learn how to make a custom UI tab bar fully programmatically in Swift. We will also learn how to create custom shapes with UIBezierPath. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to create your own curved shapes. Before I start, let me show you the final result of this chapter. This is the UI tab bar that we are going to create. Without further ado, let's start. Alright, I think at first it would be better to learn how we can draw simple shapes like line, circle, or curved line using UIBezierPath. To do some training, let's open an XCode playground project. Let's say XCode, and here I will just say File, New, Playground, and I'm gonna name it as Custom Tab Bar. Let's say Test. Hit Create. So let's make it bigger. I'm gonna start with making our playground environment to be able to display UI views. To do that, I will add a framework which is called Playground Support. And also let me delete this line. And let me create a class for a view controller. I'm gonna call it my view controller. It will be subclass of UI view controller. And inside the UI view controller, let's override the VD load, but I think it is better to build. Let's run it because autocomplete doesn't work. So let's again try view did load. Yeah, here inside the view did load, I will just call this super.view did load, and also I will define the background color, let's say system blue. To be able to display this view controller, we need to do one more thing. In the next line, let's say playground page dot current dot leave view is equal to, let's say, my view controller, and let's hit run. We can see the view controller is displayed across the page. Let's actually make its background black. Let's say black. Hit run again. Cool. Inside the my view controller, let me create a UI view. We are gonna create our custom shapes in this UI view. Say here, let's my view, that will be in UI view type. And also let's create a closure for that. Inside the my view, say let's view is equal to UI view. And for the frame, let's say the X coordinate will be 10. The Y coordinate will be, let's say 100. And for the width, we'll say 400, and for the height, let's say 500. Also, I'm gonna define a background color for this view. I will say system blue, and finally return the view. I want to add this my view into my view controller in the load view function. Let's also overload load view because I want to make everything programmatically, so it is best practice to add your UI view into view controller in load view function. Let's say super.loadView. Also in the next line I will say self.view.add subview, which is my view. Let's hit run. And we can also see our UI view. Awesome. Now I will create a function that will handle custom shape. Let's call this function setup custom shape. Let's say func setup custom shape. And also let me call this function in the load view function. And in the setup custom shape, to draw a custom shape, first we need to have the shape's path information. We will use UIBezierPath for that. Actually, I will create a function that will return back UIBezierPath instance. Let's say let's path. This is UIBezierPath. And I'm gonna make this constant equal to, let's say, get path or tab bar function. And also let me create the get path for tab bar functions body. For drawing paths, we will use CI shape layer. Let's also create that. That will be equal to CI shape layer. So please pay attention. With the UIBezierPath, we're gonna create the shapes path information, and with the CI shape layer, we're gonna actually draw that shape according to UIBezierPath. Here in the next line, Let's make some configuration. Let's say shape.path will be our path, and also shape.linewidth, you can say 3. It will be border, in other words. We can also define border color for our shape. Let's say shape.stroke color is equal to UI color dot, let's say white dot CG color. For the background color of our shape, just want to make it transparent for now. Let's say fill color is equal to UI color dot clear dot CG color. And finally, let's add our shape into my view. Let's say my view dot layer dot add sub layer, and let's add our shape. All right, now let's fill the body of this get path for tab bar. Actually, it should return the UIBezierPath, and inside the function, I'm gonna create an instance of UIBezierPath. Let's say let path is equal to UIBezierPath. With this path instance, we can generate paths for our custom shape. So we are going to use a few methods to create paths. Let's start with the move method. With the move method, we can move our cursor to a specific coordinate for the starting point. Let's say path.move. We have a parameter here and it needs CG point. Let's say CG point. We need to pass a coordinate for the cursor. Let's say 50 for the X and 50 for the Y axis. The other method is add line. As the name suggests, we can create lines with this method. Let's say path.addLine, and this also needs a coordinate which will be our target. It will start to draw the line from here, from this point up to this point. Let's say for the x-axis, I can say 100. For the y, let's keep it same, 50. And here in the next line, I'm gonna close the path. Also return our path instance back where it is called. So let's try to run. So it seems there is an error. Let's check it. It says cannot assign value of type UIBezierPath to type CGPath. Yeah, I think it should be .CGPath. Yeah. So let's rerun it again. And we can see a line on the my view. And this line is created along the coordinates that we specified. Well, the third method is the add arc method. We can add a circle with this method. Here in the next line, after adding the line, let's say path.addArc. So it needs 5 parameters. Let me hide the left window to have more space. The first parameter is the origin of the circle, where it should be. Let's say CG point 130 for the x-axis and 50 for the y-axis. For the radius, I can say CG float and 30. For the start angle, let's actually say CG float 0, so it will start from 0 degree to float dot p. Actually, let's say 2 times float, and that will be 360 degree. And for the last parameter, we'll say we're gonna draw the circle in clockwise. I say true, and let's hit run again. So actually, the circle was added at the end of the line. The line in the center of the circle was added automatically. It is because BezierPath tries to concatenate 2 endpoints. So just ignore it for now and go on. Here we draw the circle from 0 up to 2 times p degrees. Instead of 0, let's make it p degree and see what happens. Here, let's say start from float.p and go through 2 times pi. Let me hit run again. Now it drew a half circle. If we change the clockwise direction of the circle, then it will be upside down. Here, let's say for the clockwise false and rerun it again. Now it is upside down, just like that. So let's add a vertical line at the end of this half circle, just like that. Here after the add arc method, let's say path dot add line, the coordinate will be 160 for the x-axis, and also for the y-axis it will be 150. So if you didn't understand why I defined this x coordinate as 160, let me draw the coordinates of this line and this half circle. That would be better to understand it properly. Let's say this is our beginning circle, right? It is 50 for x and 50 for y. So this is the end point of our line. X is 100 and y is 50. So this is our half circle. Remember, the radius is 30. That means from here to here, it is 2 times radius. At this point, the x-axis should be 160 and the y-axis will be the same, 50. And now we just want to draw a vertical line, just like that. Here, the x-axis should be the same, which is 160, and y-axis will be, we can say, 150. So that means the length of this line will be 100. I think it is pretty clear. Let me delete this sketch. So let's hit run again and see the results. Yeah, just like that. The vertical line was added. Let's add another half circle at the end of this vertical line, so it will be something like that. Remember, this coordinate is 160 for the x and 150 for the y. So this is, let's say this is origin of our circle, and the radius will be 30. That means the origin of our circle will be 130 for the x and 150 for the y-axis. Let's add it. Path.addArc. Remember, the x was 130 and the y is 50. The radius will be 30. Let me copy this and paste it over here. So the start angle will be 2 times pi and the end angle will be pi. And also the clog y, let's say false. Let's hit run again and see if it works. It seems we did something wrong. And yeah, the y-axis should be 150. And let's rerun it again. And there we go. Finally, let's add more line to finish the shape paths. So we're gonna add a line in this direction horizontally and another line vertically to finish the shape. So here the point will be 50 for x-axis and also 150 for the y-axis. The beginning of the line also is 50 for x and 50 for y. This is where we define our cursor at the beginning. Let's add these lines. I'm gonna say path.addLine CG point. The x will be, remember, 50 and the y will be 150. And also let's add another line. I'm gonna just copy it and paste it. Here the x will be 50 and the y will be 50. Let's hit run again. And we can see the custom shape was created. I think you got the idea about drawing lines and circles. Now the last method that we are gonna see is add curve method. As the name suggests, it is used for adding curved lines. But to make a curved line, we need to do a little more mathematical calculation. Don't worry, it's alright. First, let's delete all these codes except the first line and examine the add curve method. Let's say path.addCurve. Here we can see add curve method needs 3 parameters. The first parameter is used for the target coordinates of the curve, and the other 2 parameters are used to create actual curve. This is where the magic happens. There's a useful website that we can use for defining our control point 1 and control point 2 coordinates. I will also put the link of this website down in the description so you can use it. So let me show you the website. Here we can see a curved line. This is the beginning of the point and this is the end point. At the top we can see control points. This is the first control point and this is the second control point. So let's try to play with this control point and see what happens. As we can see, when we move the points, control points, the shape of the curve changes. Just like that. So let's make a curve and try to draw it on our playground. For example, let's say something like that. I think we can create this curve with UIBezierPath. So in the playground, let me hit run again. But of course, we need to delete this addCurve method first and run again. And we only have one horizontal line, right? Which is this guy. And now we're gonna add a curve, and that will be something like that. So let's get back to our website and try to calculate the control point coordinates. Imagine this is our line in the playground, and the end of this line is 100 for the x and 50 for the y-axis, right? This was for x and this was for y-axis. To make it simple, let's define the end point of our curve as 100 plus 100, which is 200 for the x, and also 50 plus 100, which is 150 for the y-axis. So that means the y-axis is 100 and the x-axis also is 100. So this is our control point 1 and this is our control point 2. Let me write it down. Control point 1. Here I will define the x and y coordinate of control point 1. Well, there are 10 cells from here to here. That means we can say each cell keep 10. And from 0 to here there are 4 cells. That means the x coordinate is 140 because this is 40 for the x coordinate and we already have a 100 that comes from the horizontal line. The x coordinate of control point 1 is 140 and y-axis is simple because control point 1 is on the same line with the end point, so we can directly say the y coordinates is 150. This is x, this is y. For the control point 2, the x-axis will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means 100 plus 60, it is 160. For the x, for the y, it will be same because it is on the same line with the horizontal line. It is 50, so it must be also 50, and that's it. We have our coordinates for control point 1 and control point 2. And let's add it. Let's get back to our playground and add a curve. Let's say path dot must be lowercase, path dot add curve. For the target point, it was 200 for the x and 150 for the y. For the control points 1, the x coordinate was 140 and y coordinate was 150. For the control point 2, the x axis was 160 and the y is 50. I hope everything is correct, so let's give it a run and see what happens. We just did the same curve. So this is how you can create your own curves. Well, I already made a shape for our UI tab bar. I only used lines and curves but nothing more. Let me copy the code and paste it over here, just like that. And also let me change the my view width and height to make it looks better. Let's say 414 for the width, and for the height, let's say 60. And we can also change the background color. This time I want to say dark gray. And let's try to run again. And this is going to be our custom UI tab bar shape. Just to give you more idea about how I did this shape, I made a drawing plan to show you. So here it is. Let me make it a little bigger. In this plan, the most important thing is I separated this curved hole in 3 sections and made curves for each section separately. That means I made curve for this part, and finally for this part. This is how I got this result. I hope it will be helpful to you. You will find this plan in the GitHub repository. So now, if we understand how to make a custom shape, it is time to create a brand new Xcode project and apply this shape into a uitabbar controller. So let me close this and let's go to File, New, Project. I'm going to create an empty project, and for the name, let's say custom tab bar, and hit next, then hit create. I will also upload this project to my GitHub account as well, so you will be able to download it. I'm gonna put the link down in the description. Alright, we're gonna make everything programmatically, so let's delete the main.storyboard. Let me delete this guy. Move to trash, and also delete the related extensions of main.storyboard. Let me find it. It's here, and I'm gonna delete this as well. Finally, I will delete the main storyboard from here. Let's delete it from here too. We can also delete the view controller as well. Let's delete this. Move to trash, and here I will create a new Swift file in the project folder. Let's say new file, that will be Swift file, and for the name I will say my custom tab bar. Let's create it. Here inside the my custom tab bar, I will create a class called my custom tab bar controller, and this will be the subclass of UI tab bar controller. And let me override two functions. First one is view.load, say override func. Inside I will say super.view.load. It gives an error. I think it is because we also need to import the UIKit, and errors are gone. Let's also override the load view function. Let's say super.loadView. And here I will set up my custom tab bar into separate function. Let's say setup custom tab bar. And inside the load view, I will just call this function. And now I will copy the code that we wrote in the playground project. Here in the playground, I'll copy the setup custom shape and paste it over here in the Xcode project. Also, I will get the getPath for tab bar function all along down and paste it in the my custom tab bar controller, just like that. So instead of my view, we'll use self.tabbar.layer. It must be insert sublayer. And let's copy the shape and pass it for the first parameter. And for the second parameter, it will be 0. Let's delete this, just like that. And also here, instead of my view, we're going to use the self.tabbar.bounds.width. And let me delete the rest of it. So the frame height also should be something like that. And we can also add a little bit height for the tab bar shape, let's say plus 20. Now let's try to build and see if everything is okay. So build succeeded. Now I will add two view controller for making navigation between them. Let's also add these view controllers in the most bottom. Here I will just say class view controller 1. This is a UI view controller, and inside let's override the view.load and call this super.view.load. And in the next line I will give a title for this view controller, let's say home, and also for the background, let's say black. Now for the second view controller, I will just copy and paste it again and just change the name of the class view controller 2. And for the title, I will say favorites, just like that. For the background color, let's say system gray. Now I will add these two view controllers into our my tab bar controller class. Let's also create a function for these two. Let's say func add some tab items, and also let me call this function in the view.load Now I'll create an instance of view controller 1, the first view controller. For that I will say UI navigation controller, and for the parameter I will just pass the view controller 1, just like that. Let me copy this line and paste it again. The second constant will be view controller 2. Alright, so I need to set these view controllers title again. Let's say view controller 1 dot title is home, and view controller 2 dot title is favorites. So it is time to set these view controllers into our UI tab bar controller. To do that, we will just call the method set view controllers. The first parameter will be an array of view controllers. Let's say VC1 for the first item and VC2 for the second item. And for the animation, we can just say false. In the next line, I will define some images for each view controller. To do that, let's try to get the tab bar items. Let's say guardlet items is equal to tab bar dot items, else let's just return it. And in the next line I will say items first item dot image is equal to UI image system name, and for the name of the icon I will say house dot fill. It will grab the icon from SF symbols. Let me copy this line and paste it again. For the second item I will use the star dot fill icon. Also, let's give background color for our UI tab bar shape. Here, instead of clear, I will just say white. Alright, let's try to build it. And it says build succeeded. Good. As you saw, we removed the main storyboard from our project. So we need to specify a view controller that will be displayed when we run the app. In this case, we want our My Custom Tab Bar controller to be displayed as the initial view. To do that, we are gonna add some code in the scene delegate. Let's get into scene delegate file, and here inside the scene function, let's start with naming this constant. Let's say window scene. And in the next line, the window parameter is equal to UI window. For the window scene, we will pass our window scene. And in the next line, we're gonna call the window dot make kn visible. And finally, we will set the root view controller. Window dot root view controller. This will be our My Custom Tab Bar controller. So let me build it again. And it says build succeeded. Now it is time to run our app. For that, I will use the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and let's hit the run icon. And we can see our custom tab bar. Just like that. View controller 1, which is black. This one, the view controller 2, which is gray. Awesome. But please pay attention when I click in the hole, a tab item is triggered. So we don't want this to happen. To fix this, let's get back to our My Custom Tab Bar file and add some more code. Here in the next line, I will give custom width for the items. Let's say self.tabbar.item width. We can say 40 for the each items. And also I will set the position of items. It is tabbar.item positioning, and I will make it centered. So let's try to run it again. And now we can see we need to give some space between these items. Here I just say self.tabbar.item spacing, let's say 180, and rerun it again. We can see the problem was fixed. Now it's time to add a button in the middle of the tab bar. Let's do that. Here at the mouse tab, I will create a UI button object. Let's say let btn, which stands for button middle. That will be UI button, and I'm gonna create a closure for that. So inside the closure, let's create a button instance. that will be like that. For the frame, I will say CG rect. And for the X coordinate, let's say 0, 0. For the width, I will define 60. And for the height, again, I will say 60. And also, I will make it empty. I'm gonna set its title as empty. For the control state, let's say normal. So I also want to define a background color for our button. To set a color from hex string, I have an extension for that. Just let me copy and paste it here to save some time. Let's say I'm gonna copy it and paste it over here. And inside the button, let's say button.background color is equal to UI color, and we can see our extension. For the hex, I will say FE989B. For the alpha, let's say 1. So in the next line, I will make our button rounded. It should be layer dot corner radius is equal to 30, which is the half of height. And in the next line, let's also make some shadow for our button. Layer dot shadow color is equal to UI color dot black dot CG color. Let's also define shadow opacity, btn layer shadow opacity, and we can say 0.2. It's all right for the opacity. And also let's say button.layer.shadow offset, that will be CG size, the width will be 4, the height will be 4. It will define the thickness of our shadow. And finally, I want to set a background image for our button. I already downloaded an image. Let me drag and drop it into assets here, and just like that. This is my camera icon. And inside the button, let's say button.set background image. That will be UI image. For the name, it is IC camera. For the control state, let's say normal. And finally, return our button instance. Here in the load view, I will add the middle button. Let's say self.tabbar.add subview, and that will be middle button. Also in the view.load, let's set middle button frame again. Middle button dot frame is equal to CG rect. The X coordinate should be the center of the tab bar. So I will say an integer. It will be self.tabbar.bounds.width. It will be divided by 2 and minus 30. For the Y coordinate, let's say minus 20, because we want to move our button to top a little. And for the width, it will be 60 again. And for the height, it also be 60. I think everything is all right. Let's try to build the project. Build succeeded. Let's also try to run the app again. Good, it works. Just like that. So finally, we can change the selected item color too. Let's make it same color just we did in middle button. Here inside the my custom tab bar, I will just say self.tabbar. I think it was tint color, and it will be UI color. Let me copy it from the button just like that and paste it here. Rerun the project again. Cool, now it works properly. Alright, that's it for this chapter. I hope it was useful for you. Please do subscribe. This is the best way to support me. Thanks in advance. See you in the next one. Goodbye.